Samsung shares down 1.5% since the company announced earnings. The chip business is doing well, but there's a bleaker picture on the smartphone side. Joining me now is Mark Newman from Bernstein Research. Good to see you, Mark. Okay, so a lot of people anticipating that, Samsung was going to have a harder time than it has in the past in the smartphone sales. What are you seeing?
Well, I think that now we're starting to see the smartphone business start to recover. Q4 was very disappointing because what happened last year, they sold too many phones into the channel. The S4 sales weren't quite as great as what they had anticipated. From a year ago, it's actually pretty much flat, and handset is actually doing much better going forward. I think it's going to do even better. Okay,
and sales, of course, in chips drove profits some 6% or so up. How surprising was that? I mean, I think a lot of people, when they talk about Samsung, they like to talk about the TVs or the smartphones, but then wham, chips looks like it's doing quite well.
Well, we've been saying for a while, semis is the main earnings driver for the company, and I think that memory is leading that, right? So both DRAM and NAND flash are going into shortages because it's getting very, very difficult to grow supply due to technology constraints. And this is leading to supply, not enough supply. Supply shortages, and that's leading to very, very strong pricing. And so all the memory companies are benefiting from that, and Samsung is the leader in the world in memory in terms of share, in terms of technology, and so they're also benefiting.
Okay, and so you sound pretty bullish, at least for the rest of the year on Samsung. But what about more in the longer term? I mean, a lot of these companies, it feels like, are running out of things to innovate, so to speak. There's so much competition in the smartphone sector. There's really only so much you can do to be better. Is Samsung paving the way in terms of innovation moving forward?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, you look recently, I think there's a bit of a change in what Samsung's doing. Normally they've been following what other companies do, such as with the smartphone, kind of following what Apple did. But in wearables, they're more of a first mover. They've come out with the smartwatch ahead of Apple and ahead of any of the other companies. And so I think that is a notable change. And I think the company has been employing lots and lots of researchers in the software field to enable them to be more innovative, because I think longer term the way you make money in tech is you actually need to have both hardware and software, and it's the combination of that to provide a service or to satisfy a need. And just hardware alone, just software alone is not the end. They need both.
Okay, so the perennial question in terms of innovation, are you more bullish on Apple or Samsung?
I would say that's a tough, great question, but I would say Samsung. But Samsung's innovation is quite different than Apple's. Apple tends to have relatively infrequent but very, very large breakthrough innovations, such as the iPhone and the iPad, iPod, of course. Whereas Samsung makes very, very frequent incremental innovations, and that's what Samsung is the best at, probably in the world, I would say. And I think today, we're in an era now for phones, tablets, etc., where it's all about incremental innovation rather than a breakthrough innovation. And I think Samsung's best position there.
Okay, Mark Newman, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you.